Tonight, we take a close look at the government's defense expenditures. With the Lafayette News, I'm Paul Zavich. As a country well experienced in warfare and national security, the United States has a long history with regard to the defense industry. Each year, the government spends hundreds of billions of dollars on the military and defense contracts. But because of the sector's integral importance to the nation's stability, total spending each year sees little effect from economic booms and busts. We have Connor Brennan reporting with more.
In today's world, it's pivotal that national security remain a top priority. However, at what point is it too much? According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, the world spent over $1.5 trillion on military expenditures in 2009, with the U.S. accounting for 46.5% of this total. To put this figure in a better perspective, China came in second at 6.6%. Over the last decade, military spending has increased in the U.S. by 89%, one of the highest growth rates in the world. But with the present pushes to cut budgets, defense spending may fall victim as an obvious area where cuts are needed. How do members of our campus community feel about this? Eric Teschmacher asked them just this.
First question. The government spends $660 billion on the defense budget last year. Do you think this number is too large, too little, or just right?
I don't think I necessarily know what to compare that to, but I definitely think that that's a lot of money.
Way too high, inappropriately high. I really think that that money should be spent elsewhere.
I don't really have a figure, but I would probably say that that number could be a little less.
With recent debates on the federal budget, do you think defense area is one area that we should be cutting funding from?
I think that the way that we're spending our money needs to be rethought and reappropriated. So I don't know if necessarily there needs to be a cut so much as more of using it more efficiently, and if we have money left over, putting that towards a better means.
Absolutely, I agree.
Just piggybacking off of that, like she said, I wouldn't cut any funding from the defense budget, but I'll reallocate it in a sense to take less emphasis off nuclear weapons and things like that and put it more toward paying the soldiers and take care of their families, because I think that's important. You want to make sure you take care of the manpower that are operating these machines or are being put on the front line. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then take care of them after they retire.
Exactly.
And ensure their health benefits.
I definitely think that our country should be protected, but I don't know if $660 billion is the right amount.
I'm here with Will Heffernan, a junior here at Lafayette College. My first question for you, Will, is how important is defense spending for you?
Defense spending is pretty important in the United States because we have to protect our homeland, and ever since 9/11, there's been greater threats from the outside to the United States, and it's pretty important that we spend a lot of money on defense to protect our home turf.
Now, the United States recently has been shooting off missiles. Each one is about $1.1 million. Do you think we should be cutting costs or maintaining this amount?
I think we should be cutting costs in that aspect, because that's more I feel like that's not really defense. That's kind of like offense almost. Well, who are we bombing? Who are we spending $1.1 million missiles on?
We have a very special guest today, Elon Paleg, the Charles A. Dana Professor of Government Law here at Lafayette College, and an expert on international affairs and American foreign policy. And he's going to give us his take on the U.S. defense budget. We're wondering if you could give us your take on the current level of U.S. defense spending, and if you feel maybe it's necessary given the U.S. position in the world, or if it's a bit excessive.
The defense expenditures have been quite excessive, very exaggerated in many different ways. Although the United States has a lot of obligations in the world, I think that we have sort of overdone it in terms of the expenditures right now.
And what factors do you see driving this excess?
I would say that mostly economic and social issues. In other words, the so-called military-industrial complex is easily the most powerful lobby in Washington. I think the pressure to maintain the excessive level of expenditure is enormous, and I think will probably, in all likelihood, continue in years to come.
And with the current budget debate, do you see a scenario in which the Obama administration and Congress could agree to significant defense cuts in the near future?
There is going to be some reduction in defense, maybe to the tune of $100 billion a year over the next several years, but how quickly And how deeply it will go, it's very, very difficult to know.
Do you feel the current unrest in the Middle East may play a role in shaping future budgets?
The Middle Eastern situation may have an impact on some expenditures, although not necessarily in a very major way.
Can you give us an international take on the American defense budget? Many countries dislike American military hegemony, but others have become accustomed to living under the so-called security umbrella. What's the likely reaction to major cuts in the U.S.?
Most of the European countries, Japan as well, are very much interested in the United States maintaining its defense expenditures, because they have been living under the American umbrella, and this means that they have to spend a little bit less. So I think in this regard, I don't think there is going to be enormous amount of opposition on their part.
Thanks, Chris. Clearly, this is a hot topic for argument. We're allotting 7 times more money towards defense than China, the second highest military spender. This is sure to be a key sector in budget debates for many years going forward, and one we need to keep a close eye on. Thank you, and good night.